Hello, Noble people. My name is Noble. Today we're going to do episode 3 of Bedrock, a Minecraft add-on for Minecraft Bedrock. And last we left off, I beat the boss of the Flender, and I wanted to try and get some ominous bottles to see if I could do a hard mode in the trial chamber ruin things that I found. Unfortunately, apparently you can't get the ominous bottles at the pillager outposts anymore. No raid captains were actually spawning here. You get them a different way on Better and Bedrock, and I didn't know that, and I spent a really long time here, so I kind of did it for no reason. However, I eventually gave up, and once I googled it, and I started to venture over to the old tower that had that witch spawner previously, because I wanted to look if there's any good loot in there. I eventually got there and just used my lava that I had to kill them all pretty quickly. One of them did hit me with a potion of poison, which is why my health was so low. However, I was able to make my way all the way up to the top. There was a zombie villager spawner, not specifically a zombie villager, which wasn't too hard. Since it was really confined, I was able to very easily deal with them and get the loot there. The loot wasn't anything too special up there. However, in the top of the tower, I actually did see something in the distance, and it looked like possibly another tower that was like this, or it looked like just a better tower in general, so I decided I wanted to go look and see what that was. Before I went to the tower, I found this grave site that had a bunch of bones, and if you don't know, bones in Bedrock are very useful compared to how they are in Java. You can actually bone meal sugarcane, meaning that if I used all of these bones to actually bone meal a bunch of sugarcane, I could potentially use the villagers in this world to get a lot of emeralds really fast. In episode 1, I did say I didn't really want to use the villagers too much. However, there is so much bones here that I decided I might as well try and do at least something. And there's also other plantables in this game, so I might be able to use bone meal to get like better stuff. Like in my inventory I already have a tomato and like an onion, so maybe I could have grown really high tier food possibly. I know you can make stuff like pizza in this mod, so I thought maybe the bones would come in handy for that as well. The tower that I was going to was one of the many battle boss towers. So there's these boss towers in this add-on that have waves of trial spawners that get progressively difficult as it goes. This first one's fairly easy with just zombies and skeletons, and since I had a smite 4 sword or 5 sword, I was very easily able to take them out. However, one thing that comes very apparent later on, this sword has knockback, which is not the best when I've had to fight in here. However, this place does have decent loot in the chest. The first chests aren't the best, but as we get to each tier, it gets progressively better and better with what type of loot you can actually obtain from this tower. I'm just gonna rapid fire off what was in each room. The first one, or the second one, I should say, is the breeze and skeleton. Wasn't too bad. The fact that I did have a knockback sword was a little bit sad. Now, one of the good things that I did have before I went in here is I did have a bunch of trial keys, meaning the vaults that were accessible I could actually use and unlock. They weren't like the high tier vaults, but they are still vaults that would still give me like iron and stuff, especially arrows, since I didn't have any arrows in my bow, which is really helpful in the later tower levels of the tower. The next room was spiders and breeze. This wasn't any more hard. The only problem was this room had dripstone, so some of the breeze would bounce me actually into the dripstone and it would hit me. It wouldn't necessarily do a lot of damage, but it actually hit me for the durability of my armor, and my armor is slowly getting very weak, and since this is probably some of the strongest armor I can get right now, since some of them actually has like protection 4, that's probably not the best, that it's losing its durability as I fight here. And I did get a little overzealous with fighting these things a bunch of times, because it ended up that I did start to break some armor pieces. Not the most important armor pieces, but at least some of them. The next room was blazes and wither skeletons, which could have been at least decently scary. However, I just kind of shot all of the blazes really quickly and they weren't that big of a deal to deal with. And the wither skeletons actually got stuck where they spawned. For some reason in this room there's a bunch of blocks everywhere, so they just got stuck behind some half slabs and couldn't really do anything, which is really funny, and I was able to pretty much completely clear this room for absolutely free. The next room is where everything fell apart. The next room had pillagers, evokers, vex, the ones with axes. I think they're like, I forget what theirs called, but basically a bunch of insanely hard to kill and hard to beat enemies, to the point where almost immediately I got pushed into the wall and couldn't really do anything, and then immediately died. Like literally 2 seconds and died. Luckily, I did set my spawn at the bottom of the actual tower, and I decided that I would actually move my bed higher up. And this became a thing where I spent about 30 minutes trying to get my stuff back. And I realized one of the things that I really, really don't like about this mod, and that is the fact that you actually lay a corpse once you die. Interacting with the corpse is with the hit button, meaning that anytime I would try and punch my way through, which I was trying to do just so I could see if I could get to my corpse a little bit, or probably dwindle them down like I did when I was in the trial chamber thing, it wouldn't work because every time I would punch, I would interact with the corpse and then they just insta-kill me. And since it was such a small room, I was bound to accidentally interact with one of the corpses. I would have rather if my loot just exploded all over the floor, because I could have easily picked up at least something. But here, I really couldn't do anything except kind of punch through. Eventually, I did look through the old chests that were in the previous floors to get a pickaxe to mine my corpse up and try and get the loot before I attacked them. And luckily, I did actually have a totem of undying actually in the corpse that I had originally died with, so I was able to use that to be able to defeat them. With the totem, the next rooms were a breeze to go through. The next room was silverfish and zombies, and it was very, very easy because I practically one-tapped all of the zombies with my smite sword, and the silverfish weren't that big of a deal. I thought they might embed themselves in the stone blocks we had around them, but none of them were actual, like, solid stone blocks, so they could not embed themselves in the stone, and I passed this level very, very, very easy. The next room was the hardest by far, a magma in slime. My frames were so low that I could count them. I'm not going to show you the low frame rate because it was just bad footage. I popped totems here, and you can't even hear the sound effect of the totem popping because of like how much audio is going on. And this is, by the way, this is like towards the end of when I was fighting it. There was like 20 big ones of slimes and magma cubes. Once they all got little, it was fairly easy to kill all of them. But when they're all big, I could count like 5 frames that I was going at because there's just so many entities on my computer and it could not handle it at all. The next room could have been really, really bad. It was slimes and the slowness version of skeletons, mainly because when I first entered the actual room, there was these dispensers that shoot you with a bottle of oozing, which if you don't know, if you take damage when you have an oozing effect on, you spawn more slimes, which is very much not good. Luckily though, even though I did hit it, I actually put down lava in the middle of the room. That way I could kill them very easy. I decided I would do that just in case there's any more mobs, kind of like the last one we were on. And unfortunately, I also found out a lot of the chests seem to be copied and pasted, meaning that they're the same exact loot, like down to even the placement of where they are. That being said, some of the loot still has stuff like golden apples and stuff, so they are still useful, but it's unfortunate that there's a bunch of copy and paste stuff, so I can't actually get necessarily anything new, at least from some of these basic chests that are here. I found an invisible goblin trader that actually had a pickaxe for sale that had Fortune 3, which is insane. Well, yes, it is still an iron pickaxe. 4 iron for a Fortune 3 pickaxe is an insta-buy. This will actually allow me to get diamonds and just overall resources much, much faster. Especially since a lot more resources matter. Apparently diamonds, gold, iron, everything matters a lot. And apparently Fortune actually does apply to more resources than just gold, iron, and diamonds. Apparently it can actually make some of the specific ores in this actual game very useful. And on the last floor that we actually go to, there's just diamonds sitting here and a bunch of trial spawners or trial keys that I can just unlock and get a bunch of really good loot from. And this is insane. It even gave me an ominous bottle, so I thought I was actually going to go back and actually decide to look at them. Now, Unfortunately, the chests here are a little bit copy and pasted with some of the resources. Like I said, some of the resources are still good. Like, I'm going to grab all this gold and emeralds and stuff. But a lot of the enchanted books are exactly the same. And I don't need the exact same enchanted book like 20 times over. It doesn't make too much sense for me to do that. But all the other loot in this place was insanely good, especially the diamonds. I walked out around with 13 diamonds. I even did get the achievement that I had for some of my adventuring stuff that allowed me to get an extra diamond on top of that. And I was so happy with this full haul. I even got a thing called the adventuring hat, which apparently acts as kind of like a diamond armor helmet, but with incredibly low durability, which I kind of needed considering that some of my armor had actually broke from the fights here. And this is where the rest of the video kind of gets a little repetitive. Basically, I decided that I saw a bunch of other ones from the top of this tower, so the rest of the video I pretty much just ran around doing all of these trials, trying to get some of the loot. Eventually I ended up stopping because, well, yes, some of the loot was good. This is when I noticed that the loot was copy and pasted and it wasn't as good as it could have been, so I eventually just decided to stop going through the actual full trial rooms. I even tried to use some of the ominous bottles that I did have, but unfortunately it made the trials too hard and I died. So I ended up just climbing to the top of the towers to mine these diamonds to see if I could get a bunch of them to use to make a full set of diamond armor. And now we come to the end of the video where I really don't know what to actually say because I feel like I might actually end this series at this video. I was actually contemplating even if I really wanted to do the third part, but since I had the footage and didn't really feel like fully deleting it since it was over a couple hours of footage that had to be edited down into this 11 to 12 minute segment, I decided to why not just go ahead and release the video. Now, I will do a fourth, fifth, whatever, how many parts you guys want to see if you do like it, but me personally, I kind of actually want to do some other stuff on the channel, not this Minecraft thing. I only kind of did this on the whim simply because I thought it was a cool add-on idea that I have been looking at for a while, and it didn't really live up to all of the stuff. I did opt out of kind of saying some stuff in the second episode, but a lot of the loot in this, like I said, has been repeated, and it makes me feel like they copied and pasted a lot of the assets around the world and didn't put their time into trying to do some other stuff. Now, I have heard like stuff in the Nether and the End Dimension is a lot better, so maybe I can try and focus on doing that in like a fourth or fifth video. But as of right now, I actually do kind of want to do a different series, which is actually a Deltarune series where I actually play through the Deltarune games, do like my voice acting for the characters, do a casual playthrough of chapter 1 and chapter 2, which I have done about like 17 million times about now, but I haven't actually done it on the actual channel. I've done it as a live stream, and then I'll have a ready save file for actually the rest of Deltarune when that releases in June. So yeah, that's going to be about it. Stay noble. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.